Okay, we're going to do Shadowguard today, sometimes called Roof. I'll show you each of the axes I'm bringing in my pack at the bottom. I also have a talisman with each of the slayers that are available on those axes. And you can see my skills and my stats in the top right hand corner. But if you want to know more in depth about my suit or why I build the way that I build, I made another video for that, and I'll leave that in the description in case you want to see that. You can get there using a moonstone crystal and selecting Shadowguard. Or if you don't have access to a Shadowguard, I'll show you how to get there on your mini map. So if you look at the mini map on your top right corner, you're going to see there's a moon gate. Actually, let me zoom in a little bit. So you need Time of Legends to access this content. And you can just go from this moon gate right here, which is Valley of Eodon, and then run the path that I'm showing you all the way through there, and then to where I'm at right now, and then you walk up these stairs and you'll be at Shadowguard. And then I'll just show you a couple of things on the outside that they have for you here for ease of access. There's a stable. You can stable and retrieve pets here. For this video, I'm going to use a real swamp dragon with real exceptional barding on it, and that should help with the content. Just you take 20% less damage, so it makes it easier. Here's an Ankh for you to res at if you die, and this crystal ball is what you use to actually access the content. And so we'll start with the bar. Okay, so for the bar, we're going to bring I'm bringing in my double axe that has Battle Lust on it because the pirates in the bar don't have a slayer. And whatever cameo you want to use is fine, doesn't matter, or just whatever talisman that has the stats on it because the slayer, again, doesn't matter. So you double click the crystal ball and you select bar to go in, and after a few seconds it'll teleport you inside. Now, the way that I'm doing isn't the only way to do it, but this is just how I like to do it, right? So I enemy of one. That causes all the pirates to be orange to me, and I invis in the corner so that I can pull them one at a time. I honor the pirate, so now I'm going to do as much damage as possible to it, and I set a scavenger agent in my assistant to pick up bottles, and I have a macro that throws the bottles. So when you see these big 300 damage chunks coming out, it's me throwing the bottle, and that's how I'm doing so much damage to them. And you'll see that each time I do it, I'm trying to do it in such a way that I reflect a bunch of damage to myself doing normal damage, and then I use the bottle without killing myself in order to get that big 300 damage, and I get the life leech from that, from Vampiric Embrace form, so I can use it to top off. And you'll also notice that if the pirate is really low and it looks like I'm going to one-shot myself, I still go ahead and take that last swing. And it's because pirates that are dead can't reflect damage back on you. So you can use that to your advantage to speed up your leeching process so you don't have to sit there and heal as much. Now the bottles, when you throw them, can have negative side effects. They can. The worst thing that they're going to do is they're going to give you 30 damage back to yourself, and that's not great. But you can just mitigate not dying by making sure that you have more than 30 health when you use them. So you want to try to get this balance down, where you do damage to the pirate, reflect some damage back at yourself, and then if you're above 30 health, throw a bottle, and that bottle will leech you back to full, and then you can do more damage to the pirate. And you can just keep doing that over and over again. And that reduces the number of bottles you have to throw, because it seems like as you throw more bottles, the worse the chance it gets for you to actually do damage. So I try to limit my bottle throws as much as possible, and that seems to do the best job that I've, it gets me through here faster than me just throwing bottles by themselves. yeah, you'll just have to play with it a little bit. This could be min-max some to do it a little faster than what I'm doing. There are other methods that I'm sure you could do, especially if you're bringing other people with you. This is just for, you know, if you're a solo Sampire. This is how I would do it. And yeah, there's not really a lot to say about the rest of it. Just be careful not to reflect and kill yourself, and make sure not to have less than 30 health when you use a bottle. And you should be in good shape. I really highly recommend setting up that scavenger agent. It makes getting those bottles off the tables a lot easier than trying to click those little bitty models. And I'm pretty sure you can do that in any sort of assistant, right? I use Orion, but I know a lot of people like to use, you know, approved clients. And I'm pretty sure you can do this in UO Assist. I'm pretty sure you can do this in Razor. Pretty sure you can do this in enhanced scavenger agents, that is, to pick up something off the, you know, pick up an item type off the ground, and then a macro to actually use the item type, the bottle, right? So that you're not sitting there searching through your bag to double click the bottle each time. It just becomes too tedious, right? So I'm going to do this. The bar, you have to kill 4 sets of pirates, right? So I've killed 1 set. This will be the 2nd set. 2 more sets, and then a pirate lord will spawn. And luckily, he doesn't reflect damage, so he's pretty easy. I'll tell you more about him as he comes up. But I do like doing enemy of 1, and I do like honoring the pirates just because you get a bigger hit. And while that makes it more dangerous to reflect, as long as you are doing your damage in a controlled way, and you know you're not going to reflect and do so much that it kills your character, you want to be hitting hard, because if you can leverage that last hit will hit really hard. You'll leech a bunch of life back, but it won't reflect because the monster will be dead. Like that. I guess I should also mention that the bottles do have other negative side effects. They can cause you to undress. Like, it'll put some armor that you're wearing on in your pack. So having a dress macro to quickly get your stuff back on is really important. Not just for this content, but for all content. And I guess I should also mention that I'm riding a 20%, an exceptional barded real swamp dragon for the 20% reduced damage. That helps a lot in the bar, just because of that reflect, right? You're going to be doing less damage back to yourself because of that, and that's going to allow you to do more, to be more aggressive, like I'm being. All right, we'll let this play out. I actually find bar to be one of the more, one of the faster rooms for a Sampire to clear, because you're not really hard limited by something trivial, right? You're going to see here later in this video there are a couple of rooms that are just hard limited, right? So this is the Pirate Lord. I'm gonna honor him. I'm an enemy of 1, and you're gonna see my damage is gonna stack up high on him. He's gonna be taking a lot of damage, and because I'm not reflecting damage back at myself, I can just go crazy with it, right? I can throw as many bottles as I want, and I'm leeching back enough life, so he's dying quick. Alright, so when he dies, it puts you on a 60-second timer, but that'll be the end of the room, and we'll go to the next room. So the second room we're going to do is the Armory. I'm going to again use my Battle Lust weapon, because the suits of armor in the Armory don't have a Slayer type. So you just open the crystal portal, you select the armory, and this room it's really pretty easy, but there's a couple of tricks that are going to make it faster. Well, it's pretty slow and it's hard limited, and I'll show you why. Right, so I use enemy of 1 here because it turns they're all the same armor type, so they all turn orange. So there's really no penalty to using it, and they don't have a Slayer type, so it helps you do a bunch more damage to them. All right, as you kill them, they're going to drop these little corrupted. They're corrupted items. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. You're going to go down here to these braziers, and you're going to purify them. They're called phylacteries. You purify the phylacteries on the braziers, and then you take the purified phylacteries and you throw them at these armor statues, and it destroys an armor statue for every single one. So you kill a monster, it drops a corrupted phylactery. You take the corrupted phylactery to the brazier, you purify it there, and then you destroy the statues. After all the statues in all 4 sections of the room, not the ones in the hallway, but the ones in the room, the golden ones, are gone, then the armory is complete. Okay, so when you start the armory, there's like, I don't know, 6 or so of these armors spawned. And that's good. Like, you get a lot right there at the very beginning to wear the statues down. But that's not nearly enough to break all the statues. And so what happens is you get all of these statues down, and the room really slows down after that. Like, there's just not enough. The spawn rate of the armors is a trickle, and you have a ton of statues left, and the rate at which you can purify them is way faster than the rate at which they spawn. So you end up in this very boring cycle where you're waiting on these armors to spawn, and it's a lot of waiting and not a lot of doing anything else, and that sucks. It's not engaging content, and that's why I don't like the armory. Now, just a few things that we can go over while we're waiting. I highly recommend making you a scavenger agent, just like we did in the bar for the bottles. It sucks to have to pick up the phylacteries off the ground after each one dies, and a scavenger agent just solves that, right? It just makes it where it automatically picks it up. And then I recommend having 2 macros. One to throw the corrupted phylactery into the brazier to purify it, and a second one to use the purified phylacteries and get you a target up so that you can target one of these statues. Just so you're not having to deal with double clicking in your bag too frequently, because that just takes extra time. If you don't mind the double clicking, I guess it's not too bad, but I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, so right, the rest of this this video is just going to be me waiting on these things to spawn one by one, while for each one of these leftover statues, which you can see there's still a bunch, and it'll take a long time. If you have the option to run this with other people, do it, because the rate at which the armor spawn goes way up, even with just a second person in here. You get 3, 4 people in here, and those things spawn as fast as you can deal with them, right? So it goes really fast if you've got that many people. But for the sake of this video, I wanted to show that this place can be done completely solo by a Sampire, so I'm going to do it solo. That being said, if you don't have somebody else that you can bring in here, maybe you have a second account that has Time of Legends on it, just get a second character and bring it in here. You can hide it in a corner. Or you could make an Endless Journey account and put Time of Legends on it if you've got 20 spare bucks, and stick it in a corner hiding, and that'll work. Just anything to make this faster. But like I said, I'm going to finish it out solo. So what I'll do so that you aren't sitting here watching for the rest of this is I'll stop talking now, and then I'll speed up the rest of this video uh, so that you don't have to sit through all of it. So the third room we're going to do today is the Belfry, and you want to use a Reptile Slayer cold, 100% cold damage Reptile Slayer axe with a Reptile Slayer talisman on, because the monsters in here are one's a dragon and others are drakes, but the Reptile Slayer will work for both. So what you do on this one is you double click this bell when it's golden like this, and I recommend dragging the Vile Drakes away from the bell a little bit to make them easier to loot. Like, you want to kill these in separate piles. Oh, you might have to loot one or both of them to find this little wing that I just looted. Double click it and it sends you up here to the top. And the Drake is he's a really hard. He actually hits really hard, does a ton of damage. Like, his breath hits for a ton, his melee hits for a ton. He's a hard opponent. The good news is that if you die to this, it's not a huge deal. It's easy to res and re-queue into the Belfry. But every third of his life that he loses, he pushes you off the side, and you have to repeat the same process, right? So he lost a third of his life. Now I gotta wait for the bell cooldown to reset. When it turns gold again, I can double click it, and then 2 more Drakes will spawn. I loot the Batwing, and then I go back up and I do it again and again and again. Really, very highly recommend that you all use a armored Swamp Dragon here, a 20% damage reduction, real Swamp Dragon with exceptional barding on it. It's just going to make this boss a lot more doable because he hits so hard. You'll see that my client has some graphical glitches here. I don't know, it must just be like the client that I use doesn't actually render some of that, some of the, like, the tiles or something. That being said, it's not a big deal. Like, for me, people using some sort of official client shouldn't run into that problem. There are other ways to do this boss. You don't actually, like, if you have a group and the right compositions, there's ways you can bug that boss out and drag him down here to the bottom and allow your whole group to just get on him and kill him real quick. That being said, this video's about solo Sampire, so that's what we're doing. The only thing that really sucks about this encounter is that in reality, because he pushes you off at a third life, you should be able to kill him in 3 times onto the roof. But he heals a little bit in between each. He'll sit there and cast heals on himself while you're down on the ground waiting for the bell to respawn. And so you'll see I redline him, but he still pushes me off. So I gotta wait one more time and go up a 4th time. And then I'll finish him off. And that'll be the Belfry. Honestly, this looks easy, but it's because I've done it a lot, and I'm using all the stuff I can to damage mitigate. Right, I have all my armor refined. I have the armored swamp dragon. But this guy hurts, and you'll find out real quick when you go to do it for yourself. You could use a bladed staff on him too. I don't think there's any, Armory ignore is fine here as well. Yep, so he's going to go down here. And, yep, that's it for the Belfry. Alright, on to the next room. So, the fourth room we'll do today is the Orchard. I'm going to use a fire elemental, 100% fire elemental axe for this because the monsters that spawn when you discard the apples are elementals. And the Orchard is a puzzle primarily. So you'll see I double click the tree, it spawns an apple in my bag. These trees look a little different than you. I have my trees turned to stumps for PvP reasons, but yours should look like an actual tree. In any case, you double click the apple or you double click the tree, it gives you an apple. The apple is named something, and then you can discard the apple by throwing it at a different tree. And the puzzle is to pair the correct vices with the correct virtues. So there's 16 trees total, 8 vices, 8 virtues with corresponding pairs. And I'll put an infographic up on the screen now with the corresponding pairs. Also, there is a website that I'll put up here as well that has an interactive map that you can actually select the tree, like get the apple from the tree, hover over the apple, see what the tree is by the apple's name, and then select that on the website, and then fill out all 16 trees, and it will tell you, you need to get the apple from this tree and throw it at this other tree to disappear the tree. And that will make it easier, right? So you can either know the vice virtue pairs and have a pretty good memory and deal with it that way, or you can use the interactive tool if you don't have a good memory, and that'll help. Or you can do what I'm doing, which is just go around and click random trees and try to remember which ones are vice-like names and which ones are virtue-like names, and just randomly throw vice-like apples at virtue-like trees, etc. Right, backwards and forwards. And it'll spawn a bunch of tree fellows, but as you can see, they don't have that much life. They die pretty fast. And if you hit them right when they spawn, it's like they don't generate any health pool, and they just instantly die. So you'll see me instantly kill them very frequently here. I don't always get it, but I get it most of the time. And you'll see I'm just kind of randomly doing it, and I'll get it, right? But in reality, it's probably better to use the tool if you don't have a great memory, or you don't want to do what I'm doing, which is just random. In any case, you've got to pair all the correct 8 virtues to the correct. You need to find the correct 8 virtue vice pairs, and that will eliminate all the trees. And once all the trees are eliminated, you'll finish the orchard. All right, so you'll just watch me finish this out, and then we'll move on from there. for the last key room, we'll do fountain. Again, I'm using an elemental fire slayer axe, or a 100% fire elemental axe, because the monsters that spawn in here are elementals. Now, I'm going to do a little trick here because I'm solo, and it's going to be quite a boring trick because the fountain, I don't know, they messed something up when they did it. It's barely accomplishable solo if you try to do it normally. And what I mean by that is, when you queue into the fountain, you have 30 minutes to complete any of these rooms, but the only one that you're ever really going to get close on is the fountain. And it's because if you queue in solo to the fountain, you run into a problem. The placements of well, first I should just explain what the purpose of the fountain is, right? So there are spigots, and they are connected. You need to connect them with water channels to drains, right? So you've got a fountain in the middle with spigots coming out of it. The point is to connect water channels, like aqueducts or something like that, to each of the drains in the floor. You need to have 4 spigots connected to drains. You can connect 2 spigots to one drain if you want to. Just all 4 spigots need to go to a drain. And your job is to lay the aqueduct on the ground to get the water to the drain. The trick is that each piece of aqueduct drops from these elementals that spawn in the room. So the rate at which you acquire new pieces of aqueduct is directly tied to the rate of spawn of the monsters in the room. And the monsters spawn really slow when you're by yourself. When you're solo, for whatever reason, they spawn really, really slow. And the pieces, the aqueduct pieces, have a timer on them of like, I think it's 20 minutes, which is silly. They should last the whole duration of the room, you would think, but no, they have a shorter duration than what the room lasts. So when you kill the very first monster, you're basically saying I have to complete the puzzle within 20 minutes of then, or otherwise that piece that you spawned may not be usable anymore. Okay, so if the piece is no longer usable, then if it was part of the drain you were making to connect a spigot to, or part of the channel you were making to connect the spigot to the drain, and it disappeared, now you have to find a new one, but you're waiting on the monsters to spawn. And the problem comes when the monsters will spawn, and maybe you get lucky and it drops you the exact pieces you need in the exact order you need to get all of the drains finished. And maybe you get unlucky and that doesn't happen. And then, you're stuck. You're out. You're going to have to re-queue and do it again if you get bad RNG. And it's not even like the RNG has to be really bad for you to fail this. It can be moderately bad and you'll fail it. So the way if you're going to do this solo, and I recommend you do not, but if you are going to do what I'm doing, which is to do it solo, there is a way that you can guarantee it, and that is to just sit here. I mean, actually sit here, do nothing. Let a bunch of these water elementals spawn, because the water elementals will the blocks that they drop do not begin decaying until they're created, and they're not created until you kill the monster, right? So the 20-minute timer starts when you kill the monster. So my strong recommendation is to literally sit in the corner, avoid aggro with these elementals, and for at least 10 minutes, you could go 15 to be safe, but just sit in the corner and do nothing. And I carry some invisibility potions with me just for this specific purpose, so that if I do get aggro on some, I can break the aggro with the invis potions. And you'll see me do that here. I do it a few times until some time has passed. Like I said, I don't have an exact amount of time. I just get the room pretty full with these things. And then I will kill them once they all spawn. So you'll see, I'll go ahead and speed the video up so that you don't have to wait the whole 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll show you what I do. One thing that I would just say in the meantime here is I would create a scavenger agent for the pickup part of this, right? You don't want to leave it on all the time. You want to turn the scavenger agent on to pick up the channel pieces as you kill a bunch of these water elementals. And then once you have killed a bunch of the water elementals and picked all the pieces up, then we're going to leave. We're going to use the context menu on ourselves. We're going to leave Shadowguard, and we will then have a cache of already freshly created blocks on us when we go into the new fountain, and then we'll use those blocks in the brand newly created fountain to go ahead and finish a couple drain spigots to drain connections, and then we'll have the whole rest of the new fountain that we just created to finish off just a couple of the spigots, right? So we should have enough pieces. We're effectively guaranteeing that we won't get bad RNG because we're going to front load ourselves with a whole bunch of pieces. So I'll speed it up now, and then when I get to actually building the puzzle, I'll come back in and we'll talk about that. Now that I've gathered up enough monsters, I'm going to go ahead and kill them all and get their channel pieces. Alright, so I'll speed through this. Okay, now that we've gathered them all up, we'll exit the Shadowguard, and then we'll immediately re-queue back into the fountain. Alright, so now we're in the fountain again, and I have a big cache of blocks stored up, so I'm going to use those to go ahead and build out the first couple of puzzle pieces. Again, you want to go from the 4 drains on the fountain to any drain. You can connect multiple spigots to to the same drain. And you ideally want to use these first ones that you bring in, since they're on a timer, right? Since they are decaying when you start bringing them in. You want to use those first to go ahead and finish out a couple of the pipes. If you finish the pipe out and fully connect it and get the water flowing, then the pieces are set. They stop decaying, and that piece of the puzzle is finished. So getting a couple of them out of the way with these pieces, make sure that you don't run into any problems where they decay further. So what you'll see me here do is I'll build this one out, and then I'll build the second one out, and then I'll run into a spot where I have to start waiting for monsters to spawn to get the pieces that I need to finish the last 2 drains. And I guess I'll just mention that once the drain is complete, like once you've made a line from the spigot to the drain, you double click the spigot and it fills the pipe or aqueduct or whatever, and it completes it. If you double click that spigot and that drain is not completely connected, like you missed a piece, like there's a gap, or you put a wrong piece in, the channel isn't connected correctly, then when you double click that spigot, it's going to blow up all the pieces that are connected and spawn a monster. The monster isn't that hard to kill. He's a little stronger than the normal elementals, but that's not why you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it because it ruins the pieces in the puzzle, and we spent all that time to farm those pieces, so it would be It would be pretty disastrous if you did that.
Lastly, I just want to mention that
If you have any other way to do this besides the way that I'm doing it, then you should take that option. Just like the Armory, there's no need to put yourself through this suffering. I'm just doing it because I want to prove that it can be done solo if you need to do it. And there's no other way to do it. But if you've got a friend that you can bring in, do that, because even bringing one other person in here speeds this process up like a lot. And you don't need to worry about like gathering pieces and then leaving Shadowguard and then coming back in. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff if you come in with just two people. And then obviously if you come in with three or four, it actually gets a little bit hectic, right? If you get up to like four people, there's so many elemental spawning and so many block spawning that it's just hard to keep track of it all. Uh, so just be prepared if you're bringing in that many. But two is a good number. There's it spawns enough blocks to where you're not waiting around and you can get everything done. If you don't have somebody that you can bring in, like I said, a second account with Time of Legends, whether that's a paid account or an EJ account, just bring the character in and hide it in the corner, and this process becomes so much easier. You can just come in, you don't need to queue twice, all the pieces will spawn, and you can build the puzzle, and it'll be fast. Okay, so I'll finish this out. I'll go ahead and speed it up so you can see what happens, and then we'll go to the roof and kill the bosses. Now that we've done all the rooms, it's time to do the roof, the reason that we're here. So you select roof from the menu. And once you're inside, I recommend running off to the side a little bit. You don't actually want to be, um, you don't want to aggro them right when they spawn, because you might want to, like, there's some of these bosses you need to honor. And if you aggro them right away, it's going to be tough to honor them. This guy, Juanar, you don't need to honor. He's undead, and his lowest resist is energy. So just get your double undead slayer, get your energy weapon out, and pull him. You don't need to honor or enemy of one or anything. You're already at your damage modifier cap, and he should go down pretty quick. Just make sure you're AOEing when he spawns ads, and you're appling his blood oath. I guess I would also mention that when these ads spawn, your chance to hit the ads on all of these bosses, not just this boss, is much higher when you are swinging at the ads. So a lot of times it makes sense if you're using attack nearest to stand on top of one of the ads to guarantee that you're swinging at it instead of the boss, so that your whirlwind hit check passes rather than on the boss. I guess Junar probably is one of the ones that you're going to hit way more often than the other bosses. All of the other bosses have relatively high chance to miss, so you're better off swinging at the ads. Okay, so after Junar goes down, you move away from the edge because another boss spawns. This one's Virtue Bane. Virtue Bane is he doesn't have a Slayer, so you want to honor him and you want an enemy of one. But the things he spawns are demons, so I recommend using a cold weapon with a cold double axe with Demon Slayer. So what you're going to notice is when Virtue Bane falls off the edge, he takes a little fall damage, and it takes him a second to get his health back to full. So if you can do what I do here, he's sitting on the edge, you can honor him before he falls off the edge, and then you just got to be quick to do it. I messed up there, and then going back in for a closer one, and I got it right. So now it's honored, and he can fall off the edge, and it's fine. But if you fall off the edge before he aggroes you, which would be the common case, you see he's missing a little health. You'll have to wait for him to regen that health before you can honor him. But it's always worth doing that, right? So he dismounts you. There's several things that can happen on this boss that you have to be aware of, right? So he dismounts you, that can be dangerous. These ads that he spawns can be dangerous, so you want to take care of the ads quick. And he does a supernova that you might have to dodge or just live through, and that can be dangerous. So my recommendation to how to deal with those different things is when he spawns the ads, get out of enemy of one, because they can do a lot of burst damage and it might kill you. So just get out of enemy of one, AoE the ads down, and then get back into enemy of one as soon as he's by himself again. When he dismounts you, you can get... my recommendation would be just to stay off of the mount until he gives his... he does like a... You watch your journal, and he'll give you a message that says that he's, going to create fire and brimstone or something like that. And when you see that message happen, get on your mount and run away until you see the Nova go off. And then when the Nova goes off, you can go back in and do your normal thing. That Nova does a lot of damage and it stuns you, and you can die during it. So it's best if you dodge it, if you're like not near him when it goes off. He didn't do it there, but just be aware that he can do that, and it's super dangerous. Anon the Mage is a... he has relatively high chance to miss. So like you have a relatively high chance to miss him, that is. He has really high wrestle and parry. So Armor Ignore is going to outperform Onslaught Double Strike for Anon the Mage. And you do want to get honor on him because when he's in his humanoid form, he doesn't have a Slayer. But the trick to Anon is he will use... see, I back away from him until he's at full life, then I honor him. Right, so I'm going to honor, and I'm going to put enemy of one on, and that's going to allow me to do big damage while he's in his humanoid form. So the trick to Anon is, if you do a lot of one damage type to him, he will transform into an elemental of that damage type. And if you then continue to do that same damage type to him, he heals off of that damage. So in my situation here, I'm using a hatchet for Armor Ignore, which is a physical weapon, and that's causing him to go into an earth elemental form. And if I continue to do Armor Ignore or physical damage to him while he's in that earth elemental form, I will heal him instead of deal damage to him for all the damage that I'm doing. So I get a really bad miss streak there, and I almost die here, so I have to back off and get healed up, and then go back in. Like with other bosses, when he spawns his ad, just get out of enemy of one and AoE them down, and then go back into your single target rotation. Alright, so he's... so how you avoid dealing... healing him when he's in his elemental phases is you switch weapons to a different damage type. So I'm using a fire elemental slayer with an elemental talisman for double elemental damage when he's in his elemental form, right? So I'm actually getting full damage modifier when he's in his elemental form. And because he's an earth elemental, because I was dealing physical damage to him, the fire damage won't heal. It'll do proper damage. As soon as he goes back into human form, switch into an AI weapon, and I continue AIing him until he goes back into elemental form, and then I switch. So I just continue to switch my weapons backwards and forwards until he's dead. And that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty much all there is to this boss. It just takes a little while because, like I said, you miss a lot. The reason that Onslaught Double Strike doesn't perform well on monsters that have high wrestle and parry, right? Like Onslaught Double Strike traditionally doesn't perform well on things that have very high resist. These things resist is low enough to where Onslaught Double Strike hits plenty hard. That's not the problem. The problem is that you must first apply Onslaught, and then you're relying on your double strikes to do your damage. Well, if you apply, if you take 2, 3, 4 swings to apply Onslaught, and then you swing, you only get 4 swings before you have to reapply Onslaught. If a significant number of those miss, it just eats your efficiency up, right? So it just makes more sense to AI because all the damage is in your one swing. It's not based on, there's no setup to it basically. And then also double strike itself, right? The first swing, so like when you double strike, you technically swing twice in the same swing. But the miss, you still have to hit both swings, right? So the first swing, if it hits, it'll register damage. But then the second swing also rolls the dice to see if it actually hits. So your second swing on double strike doesn't even get a roll if the first hit chance doesn't pass, right? So the first hit chance check must pass on double strike for the second hit chance check to even register, right? So between Onslaught, the setup on Onslaught, and the way that double strike is, the math works on its rolls, Armory just tends to be better on bosses like Anon and like the one we're about to fight, Ozymandias, that have really high wrestle and parry, right? Okay, so now we're on to Ozymandias. Nothing really to say about him other than, like I said, his miss chance. Your chance to miss him is very, very high. He doesn't have a Slayer, so you need to get him honor on him, and you need to enemy of him. And yeah, you pretty much want to roll with an AI weapon on this one. And the only time you want to switch is if he spawns ads, which he just did, right? So I immediately get out of enemy of one so that I'm not in danger from the ads doing double damage to me. And then I pull out this guy can spawn Suki wolves, which are demons, and he can spawn lesser Hiryus, which are reptiles. So I recommend having a keybind set up. Well, I guess I should say I recommend having a keybind set up for all of your weapon talisman combos. That way you memorize them. So you might have a lot of them. I usually put them on my number pad, and I have so many of them that I have to have my number pad full and alt number pad full and control number pad full, and I just get used to which ones are which, and it allows me to easily switch to the right weapons, right? So I just reflex instantly, get out of enemy of one so that I'm not in immediate danger, and then pull out my double axe so I can the double axe of the appropriate type for whatever spawned, so that I can AoE it down quickly, right? So in that case, I got on, those elite ninjas don't have a Slayer, so my recommendation is to pull out, if you see Suki Wolves, pull out Demon Slayer. If you see Lesser Hiryus, pull out Dragon or Reptile Slayer. And both of them are cold. Both of them have lowest cold resist, which are 2 axes you're already carrying for the rest of Roof. And then, like I said, stand on the monster you want to hit, something that you have a high hit chance on, and Whirlwind, and everything should go down quickly. Make sure you're not hitting the boss when you're trying to Whirlwind, because your chance to miss the boss is really high, and if you miss the boss, the rest of the Whirlwind fails. You must pass that initial hit check on the boss. And if you're doing that, you probably aren't going to die. And then when it's the boss by himself, you're pretty much just spamming AI. And it takes a long time because you miss a lot. Your only damage is from melee. Okay, this is as good a time to go over what you actually get from doing Roof, right? So there's 2, I would say, valuable sources of loot from Roof. First is so basically nothing we've done up to this point. None of these bosses, these prior 3 bosses that we've killed on Roof, or any of the rooms have really generated any loot of note. But when the last boss of the 4 die, and they spawn in a random order, so it won't always come out like it came out for this video. But when the last boss dies, there's a chance that an artifact will appear in your bag. And those artifacts can vary in rarity, but the high rarity ones are the Enchantress's cameos. So the same thing, the trinket that I'm wearing, or the talisman that I'm wearing right now, is an Enchantress's cameo that came from Roof, right? And it drops with a random Slayer. Some of them are more valuable than others. That's not to say there aren't other valuable things that drop from Roof, from the artifact pool. There are varying rarities and varying desirability that drives, the price is all over the place on some of that stuff. But pretty much the high value, the big ticket item is that Enchantress's cameo. And then the other stuff that can be valuable that drops on these bosses is the loot from the corpse. And when this boss dies, I'll show you, I'll hover over each piece of loot so you can see what's in there. I don't think when I got a lucky roll on this kill, because I'm not really wearing any luck to speak of. But if you're in a group, it's pretty easy to go ahead and it's hard to kill the boss in a luck suit, right? So even if I switch to a luck suit when he's redlined, it's still tough to finish him off without dying. And so like doing this in a group where you can equip a luck suit at the very end and then finish it off makes a lot of sense, because getting a lucky roll on this boss means that the loot just jumps up a tier, basically. I can do a video if you all want to see one about luck and how that works, because a lot of people don't understand it well, or at least I've seen a lot of people that have misconceptions about it. But for this video, I'll just say, like, it makes the loot intensity better. You're going to get better quality loot if you get a lucky roll. And some of this loot on here, especially the rings, the jewelry that is, rings and bracelets, can be very valuable, right? Because let's say you get a ring or a bracelet, it has really high skill increase, and of several skills that are desirable together. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's say you PvP, and you are you play a parry wrestle mage. Then if you get a jewel that has resisting spells, parrying, magery, and wrestling on it, then that's plus 60 skill increase, which is a lot. And they're all complementary skills that you can use together. And it makes a jewelry piece like that can make building a very powerful template possible. But it needs to roll that skill, and it needs to roll several other mods, 2 or 3, or hopefully 4 other mods, like hit chance increase, swing speed increase, enhanced potions, faster cast recovery, faster casting, something like that alongside the skill increase. And all of a sudden you have a jewel that can be worth, a lot, anywhere from a couple 100 million to 2, 3, 4 plat, just depending on how awesome, what you rolled is. Because some of those really good jewels are very rare, and that's kind of what you're looking for. This is one of the very few places in the game that reliably drop things like that. So getting a lucky roll and seeing a piece like that can be, a big breadwinner if you happen to get, win the lottery effectively, right? But you kind of got to know what you're looking for. So it takes a little bit of time to sort out loot and try to, figure out what's good and what's bad. And I could do a video on that as well. So leave a comment if you want to see something like that. But some of the weapons here could potentially be useful, but most of them are going to be brittle. So for weapons, primarily, you're going to be dealing, like for most classes that are dealing weapon damage in this game, they're trying to deal weapon damage. The best way for them to deal weapon damage is going to be with crafted weapons for PVM purposes. So these weapons don't tend to drop with 100% elemental on them, and so they tend to not be very good for PVM. But if you got a really good splintering weapon, those can be good for PvP. The problem with splintering weapons is they break pretty quick, so they need to be prized or cleaned so that you can powder or fortify them over and over again, or they're just going to break very quickly. And most of these weapons, as you'll see on here, are either antique, they're either antique, brittle, or cursed. And all three of those things effectively brick any weapon that for PvP, for splintering weapon purposes. So you might find a weapon on here that's brittle, that's really good for PvP, but it's not going to be worth a lot because it will be a very temporary usage weapon. Like the PvPer will buy it, but they're going to buy it under the understanding that because it's brittle, it's going to break pretty fast because you can't powder or fortify it and keep using it. The armor now, the armor though can be pretty valuable still. Artifacts have devalued armor a lot, but there are still some desirable armor pieces and some desirable shields that can drop on these bosses. And you know, you just kind of have to get a feeling for what has the right weight on it to be usable and in what properties. Like, it needs to fit a build, right? It has to like make sense for a build, right? So if you have if you get anything like that, it can be worth quite a lot. It can be worth quite a lot. So there's value. What I'm trying to say is there's valuable loot on this corpse, this last corpse from the last boss that spawns. And there's like 200 and I want to say it's 250k gold on the ground, but I actually don't know. I haven't picked it up. It's a fair bit of gold if you're starting out, but for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to loot it. One last thing, you can't teleport out of this place from any place except for this top corner. So if you want to get out early, you need to come to the top corner and exit. Okay, thanks for watching.